To Atlanta Live. I am Lynda Lee Smith, your host this evening, and I am delighted and thankful that you're with us for this edition of Atlanta Live. In tonight's program, we're going to talk to Stan Cotrell, a 78-year-old distance runner who has just finished his third run across the United States. We will find out about the motivation and the inspiration that led him to start running over 5 decades ago. Over the years, he has covered more than 200,000 miles in 38 countries, explored fascinating lands and cultures, and made new friends from palaces and the White House to poverty-ridden villages, and can testify how God has helped him throughout his journey. Also, I want to remind you that if you need prayer at any time during this program, call the number at the bottom of your screen, 770-300-9828. That's 770-300-9828. The Bible tells us in Philippians 4:6 not to be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. No matter what problem you are facing, God tells us to come to Him in prayer with thanksgiving. So if you need prayer, call the number 770-300-9828. Don't wait. We're so glad to have as our music guest in the program, Malachi, a Christian songwriter from Gainesville, Georgia, who will be blessing us with his music throughout the evening. We have a very interesting program ahead, and I don't want you to miss any of it. But now let's go to the music set and welcome Malachi, who's going to sing Work It All Together.
Trace your hand. All we can do is trust your heart. I rest my head upon your plans, so I will live in who you are. You work all things together. So I give my heart surrender. Now that I live in you, I can see you move these mountains right before me. bled for me, and now I'm met by love. When it makes no sense, I can trust in you. I'll trust in you. I'll trust in you. You prove your power with your last breath. Wreck the religion that called us dead. Now an empty tomb is all that's left. I'll trust in you. I'll trust in you. You prove your power with your last breath. Wreck the religion that called us dead. Now an empty tomb is all that's left. I'll trust in you. I'll trust in you. You prove your power with your last breath. Wreck the religion that called us dead. Now an empty tomb is all that's left. I'll trust in you. 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 You work all things together. So I give my heart surrender. Oh, you work and you work all things together. So I give my heart surrender. Now that I live in you, I can see you move these mountains right before me. You work all things together. You work it all together.
I am so excited to have Stan Cotrell here with me today. I've known you for over 20 years, but we haven't seen each other for 15 years. So it is my pleasure to have you today. You've just finished an amazing trip across the country, and some people may think that's a road trip, but we're going to get into that in just a second. I want to talk about some of the world records that you hold and kind of how you got started on this journey as an amazing endurance athlete. And then we'll talk about your most recent trip across the country.
Sounds great. I just finished a 3,000-mile run across the United States. This is my third time, and I ran from Los Angeles to the Washington Monument. The first time I ran across the U.S. in 1980, I set the world record. I averaged 66 miles a day for 48 days, broke the record by 5.
66 miles a day.
I did.
Every day.
Every day. And
That's amazing.
broke the record by 5 days. And so that was that was a very incredible event in my life. And at that particular time in my life, I was all about wanting to be in the record books.
Of course.
And so that was a Guinness record. And previous to that, I did a 24-hour run, actually here in Atlanta, and had to be run around a track. And I broke the old record for the 24-hour run by 6 miles, and I ran 167.25 miles in 24 hours.
Wow.
And along the way, I set the American record for the 100-mile run in 13 hours and 17 minutes.
Do you even know how many you hold today?
No, I don't even know.
That's what I wondered, do you even keep up with them?
No,
because there's so many. So you're in the Guinness Book of World Records multiple times, probably going in again after this last trip.
That's
just so many records. You're an author, you're a speaker, you've just had an amazing life. What got you started in running in the first place? And then let's talk about how many countries, and I mean that to our audience, how many actual countries have you run across?
My running started 73 years ago. And I was a farm boy from the backwoods of Kentucky.
Yes.
I'm from the poorest county in the state of Kentucky, which is the poorest county in the United States. And running was just a way of life. Daddy would wake me up in the morning, go get the cows and bring them in. And 6 years old, he'd had me milking cows, and I'd miss the school bus 3 mornings out of every 5. He said, if you can't get your chores done, you better start hoofing it on to school. And Lynda, I've had the opportunity to tell more than 5 million youngsters just in the United States alone this story, and they go, wow, whoa. And I literally one Saturday morning, after the milking and everything was done, a little rabbit ran across the barnyard, and I decided I wanted to catch it for a pet. And I literally ran it for 5 hours and caught that little booger bear.
Wow. So you and I, because we've talked, over the years, you knew as a child, we talked about this earlier before the show, you were putting a couple things together even as a child that you were just in your mind making correlations about how you ate and how you could run that kind of got you, I guess, to realize that you had a little bit of a gift going on here, that if you did certain things, you could perform at a higher level.
Well, it's 7 years old and 8 years old. You don't have the vocabulary. You don't have the understanding. You just feel. You just something inside you. You know that if I eat that big old piece of country fried ham with all that fat around it, that I can't run near as good. And I would notice that correlation. Or flour gravy and biscuits and sausage gravy and red eye gravy and all that kind of stuff. And,
all the good Southern foods.
That's right. But if I shied away from some of those things, because Dad would loan me out to other farmers, they'd say, we had an old cow we can't seem to hem up, or an old mule that got out we can't seem to hem up. And I'd go running.
Go get Stan, he'll track him down.
And Dad was 6'4" and 220 pounds, and Dad thought something was wrong with me. Dad thought I had worms. And Daddy had 50 foxhounds, and every month he gave the dogs a worm, and I was number 51. He'd poke up worm.
That is too funny. Oh. Well, back in the day, he probably did. He's like, what is wrong with this boy?
He did. He didn't understand about heredity.
So, obviously, we're going to talk a lot about your running career, but you just celebrated your 78th birthday.
I did.
And on your 78th birthday, unlike most of us who would have had a birthday cake and some ice cream and some friends over, tell us what you decided to do for your 78th birthday.
Well, the run was the run across the United States, which is my 3rd run across the U.S. I was going to run it last year, but we had a little thing called a virus that broke out.
Just a little thing.
And the people in California told me if I showed up, they would have to arrest me for unlawful congregation. And so this May the 7th, the door opened up and on my birthday. And so I thought that'd be a good way to celebrate.
Wow.
May the 7th sounds pretty good.
So May the 7th, on your 78th birthday, you started in California.
Los Angeles.
With a destination of the Washington Monument.
That's right.
And how many days did you run?
That was 100 consecutive days doing 30 miles a day. But here's the thing, Lynda, it's got the plot twist in here. The people that organized this, they organized and had me to run a route that nobody has ever run before. They ran me through Death Valley. And then I had my first 53 days. The lowest the temperature got was 102. And when I went through the Apache Indian Reservation, I had a 30-mile run, 117 degrees. That was the hardest that I had ever run, and I've run all over the world. And I had 18 miles that the temperature was so hot on this fresh asphalt and with tar on top of it. And there were some other people with me, and their shoes literally melted on the run.
And you were still making your 30-mile mark every day in this extreme heat. For your 78th birthday celebration, I just want to keep reiterating, this is your celebration.
When the temperature dropped down to the 90s, I thought, do I need to put a coat on?
Oh, I'm sure you did after all of that. That's amazing. That's amazing. How do you feel? I mean, you have just for the viewers, to give some context, you just got back to Atlanta on Sunday. You were at the Washington Monument on Friday and Saturday. So that wrapped up the official run. You flew back in on Sunday, and here you are just a few days later.
That's right.
How are you feeling about this latest accomplishment, which is probably going to get you in the Guinness Book again?
That's what they
because
say.
You broke your old record.
I broke the duration, and Lynda, I find it amazing that people are amazed that a 78-year-old man can go out and run 30 miles a day for 100 days in a row.
I'm impressed, I have to say. I'm impressed.
But it was, And I pray that the messages of get moving, don't buy into the lies that you're too old to do this, you're too old to do that.
Yes.
And I have searched the Bible exhaustively, and I can't find the word retirement in there. It's just another chapter.
That's a very good
It's
point.
another chapter
That's right.
in your life.
It's just an evolution of
It is.
life.
It is.
So I love that outlook. So tell me sort of because we're going to talk about like how you take care of yourself, all of that in the second segment, but what's the purpose of the runs and what exactly, are they God-inspired? And how, I know you said when you first started, you had a different reason for running, and that has evolved over the years as well. So talk a little bit about what was the initial purpose, what's the purpose today, and what inspires you?
There was a time in my life, Lynda, that I ran for one thing only. And I just alluded to a minute ago. I wanted to see my name in the record books. I thought that would make me complete. I thought if I had a world record, get out of the way, Robert Redford. A new kid's coming to town. Duh.
Yeah.
And so,
a movie star in the making.
Oh, gosh. And, for a period of about 6 months after I set the world records and all that, I call them LSD deals. The people that came around, they had to have been on dope to offer me such things that they did. And if I had accepted one of those things, I would have been on dope or have been accused of being on dope. So nothing seemed to work out. And I've also learned that a selfish dream will not sustain itself. But the more your dream embraces the lives of other people, the greater chance that has to succeed. But I'm going to make this real quick. I ran out of myself. And you see, a person can't run to God's own son until they've run out of themselves. I mean, your tank is empty.
Yes.
And then I had a different perspective. And God brought me to the end of myself. And basically, long story short, I said, okay, Lord, whatever you want in my life, my answer is yes. If you want me to go back to Kentucky and plow out whole rocky hillsides with a double shovel plow, I'll do it. But God gave me my running back in a way that I never, ever dreamed of. And that's running across countries. And because I realized, even when I was running, the people that would come out and wait for me on the side of the road, and people that wanted me to speak to school children along the way, and just the impact, and I would go, what is going on here? Because I'm out running, I'm trying to set a record. I don't have time for all this.
And people want to watch you because you're this amazing endurance runner.
And the amazing thing on this third run, people came out that was out on the side of the road as little children 41 years ago.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
it was like a homecoming for me.
Yes,
and
they've been watching you your
I'm getting
entire
Jesus bumps
career.
here.
Yeah, you get chill bumps.
And
so, how many countries have you run? So all of your runs are from one coast to the next, or if it's landlocked, it's from one border to the next.
There you go.
And how did those get going, and how many countries have you actually run across?
I've run across, to date, I've run across 40 countries, and I just showed you this morning a text I had. Later today, I'm meeting with people that's talking about 3 more countries they're wanting me to run. And
40 countries.
40 countries, but I've been back to many of those countries second and 3 times, and I had a Secretary of State from another country just call me the other day and said, Mr. Stan, when will you come back to run? Our country, it's a holiday when you come to run.
Awesome.
And so, but I've done, in 40 years, I've done 75 of these events because, going back 2 and 3 times. And one of the things that I did along the way, I ran across China. And I ran
the Great Wall of China.
I did.
Talk a little bit about that, because I know you've had fascinating experiences
Absolutely.
in multiple countries, but this was a unique period of time in history because China had been closed off to the rest of the world. So this was, I believe, if I recall, in the 70s.
No, this was 84.
84, okay. So they had not been open to the general, to the world for very long. And here you are, an American farm boy coming over to China to run the Great Wall of China. What was that like, and what was the reaction from the Chinese people seeing you do this?
It took me 5 years to get the permission. I sent a letter to I sent a telex every night to Deng Xiaoping for 5 years, every night, 365 days, round the clock. And then on 5 years and 1 day, please come to China in 2 weeks. Well,
wow.
There's that. China, ancient, forbidden, unknowable. And when I got to China and I first saw the Great Wall, I said, me and my big mouth, what have I gone and done? And they had a banquet this particular night for me in the Great Hall of the People, reserved for presidents of other countries.
So you were a celebrity. I mean, you were
Right
being
off the
treated
bat.
like a celebrity.
And the Chinese leader at that time said, what is your purpose? And I was going, I don't know. And I said, oh, Lord, I pray for wisdom. And have you ever said something at times and you said, wow, that was pretty good?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
I said, thank you very much for this question. I said, it took over 2,000 years to build the Great Wall, and one of the greatest architectural feats in all of humankind. And I said, as the wall was built to keep out foreigners, I pray that this run will be symbolic of just the opposite, the tearing down of walls that divide one country from another, but also symbolic of tearing down the walls that divide one human heart from another. I spent 49 days out of the 53 days I was there in the forbidden zones where they've never allowed anyone. I was 1,000 miles into the run, Lynda. Over 100,000 people a day were coming out to see me run through. The real reason was legend had passed it down that the foreigner had mated with dogs, and they came out to see what a half dog and a half human looked like. Duh. I keep saying duh a lot. But I'm 1,000 miles into the run, and I'm going up over one of these mountains. The mountains were a barrier anyway, and all of a sudden the ground gave way, the wall broke, and I fell some 200 feet, and I broke my back in two places. I broke the L4 and L5 in my back and a bone in my left foot. And the whole nation, the media the Chinese media got a hold of it. Will he make it? Will he make it? Will he make it? And at the end, the Chinese leader, and they had all these people, and I finished the run, and they said, Mr. Stan, how does it make you feel to know that more than 800 million Chinese speak your name today, and your name will be written in our history books, and the man that used his ability to promote the spirit of friendship between our two great nations.
That's amazing.
And
that really became, so at what point during that time frame, when you talked earlier about running for yourself versus running today for a really inspired purpose.
For friendship.
When did that transition start to take place? Was it around that time, or had it already taken place?
Well, I was noticing everything in our life is cumulative. We alluded to this. It's children start out in school, they start out in kindergarten. You get the basics, and then you just keep going, keep going. And for the 73 years that I've been running, it's been an evolutionary process. And where are the limits? It's 78 years old. I don't know where the limits are as far as human potential. I've just barely scratched the surface of potential.
Yeah.
And somebody asked me, what's the best speech you've ever given? I haven't given it yet. What's the best race I've ever run? It's still in me.
Right,
And
right.
so...
That's a huge testimony, especially as we age.
Absolutely.
That's a great mentality to just keep looking for the next best thing in your life. I think that's just a side bonus of what you do. I love the fact that your races are all about building relationships and friendships. Friendships, you said, you just got a text from a Secretary of State that you obviously met many, many years ago in a country, and they still reach out to you today. Talk about, like, how did that purpose formulate? How did you get to that purpose moment where you said, I'm running for friendship, it's inspired by God, but I want to build relationships?
I have never had a protest group ever in any country that I've ever been in. I've been in some, I'm going to say the word here, boogerish. I've been in some boogerish places, dear.
Yeah.
And I have never had a protest group ever around. Down with friendship. That we're not for this.
Yeah.
And it evolved, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, promoting friendship. And I said that to Deng Xiaoping. And I said, this run can go far in promoting the spirit of friendship between our two countries. Well, friendship was the key word.
Yeah.
They took that because it's non-threatening. It's not non-political.
Sure.
True friendship means coming together in thought, heart, and spirit.
Yes.
There's many people that live side by side with each other. They're not at peace with one another. They coexist side by side.
Yeah.
They're not friends, but they're just there. There's that wall. There's that anger, bitterness, factions, dissensions, and all of these kind of things. But I promote the spirit of friendship, and that's what my runs are all about, those themes that each one of us has a unique gift to give to the world.
Yeah.
And it's not what is so different about us, but it's how similar we all are.
We're very similar, and,
Yep.
and it's mutual respect. I like to say, when you respect someone and their differences, you do find more similarities because you're looking for the similarities. You develop mutual respect, and that's a bonding relationship that can stand the test of time.
Well, it's like you and I. We've been separated from each
Yeah.
other for 20 years, and look how easily we picked
I
up
know,
today.
it's like,
we have
I just
we
saw
have
you.
a heart bridge,
Yes,
and it's building
absolutely.
heart bridges all over the earth.
Yeah,
And my
I
mother
love
said
it.
2 months before we died, and I never ever said that word, and she patted me on the hand and she says, "We have a heart bridge, don't we, boy? We have a heart bridge." And I said, "Oh, Mama, I've never heard you say that before."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. No, it's all about that. If we just stopped and took the time to listen to each other, we could overcome so many differences that we feel like we have, but we all basically want the same things out of life. Most human beings, I find, want the same things.
And,
Family and love and relationships and the ability to prosper. So
We all
I
deal
love
with the
that.
same themes, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
The same
We do.
themes. In young men, they look at young girls when they're 16 or 17, and your husband looked at you and went, "Wow, golly gee," and you looked at him and you went, "Woo, wow,
Yes,
golly
I
gee."
did.
And wow, we're just saying, "Wow, golly geez," all over the earth.
Yes,
In
yes.
different languages, but it's still wow, golly geez.
Well, we only have a few minutes before, or a few seconds before the break, but I want to hear, like, how are you physically feeling today, real quick? Like, it's been a few days now since you wrapped up, and we're going to again get into your physical maintenance program and your nutrition and all of that, which I know the audience wants to hear because you are a medical. You're a medical miracle, I like to say, but a lot of that is you and the things you choose to do. So we have just a few seconds. Do you want to give us a segue into some of that?
A long time ago, I discovered that I could do something well, and I have two little formulas: even flow of energy distribution, even flow of emotional distribution. It is a winning formula that we can talk about.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm inspired. I'm a healthy-oriented person, but you take it to a whole new level, and I love it, and I can't wait to hear more about your maintenance program. So we'll talk more about that in the second segment. We're going to take a quick break to hear Atlanta native Malachi Mills with Your Harvest.
Labored in vain for my reward. When you were enough, I wanted more. I chased every pleasure on this earth, but nothing compares to what you're worth. I offer up my life, a living sacrifice, and I find more. When the King is my reward, it's your harvest. Every increase, it's all yours. Your kingdom come, we seek you first. We'll sow the seed and watch you work, 'cause it's your harvest. Counterfeit kingdoms rise and fall. Spirit and truth expose it all. Silver and gold will come and go, but you are the treasure of my soul. I offer up my life, a living sacrifice, and I find more. When the King is my reward, it's your harvest. Every increase, it's all yours. Your kingdom come, we'll seek you first. We'll sow the seed and watch you work. It's your harvest. Oh, it's your harvest. Offer up my life as a living sacrifice, and I find more. When the King is my reward. as a living sacrifice, and I find more when the King is my reward. And I offer up my life as a living sacrifice, and I find more when the King is my reward. I find more when the King is my reward. I find more when the King is my reward. It's your harvest, every increase is all yours. The kingdom come, we'll seek you first. We'll sow the seed and watch you work. 'Cause it's your harvest. Oh, it's your harvest. Oh, it's your harvest. Oh, it's your harvest.
We're talking with Stan Cotrell, a unique endurance athlete who has remarkable physical abilities that maybe some of us don't have, but I think you would say we do possess some of those abilities. We just haven't tapped into them. What do you do, Stan? I mean, doctors talk about you. Obviously, you've told me stories about doctors showing up at your runs. They bring the latest technology in the medical industry to study your body. They're always looking for the nuances, what's different about you that allows you to run 30 miles a day for 100 consecutive days. Most of us would be, would have muscle fatigue. Even those of us who do physical activity and train, there's the normal muscle fatigue. There's a lot that goes into that type of physical activity. So what do how do you tap into that level of performance, and how much of that is what Stan decides to do and how you train and how you eat and your nutrition versus, a physical difference in your just core DNA?
It seems like all of my life thus far has been, where are the limits? I was the first Southerner to run the Boston Marathon in 1964, and I noticed all these people just laying around and
Yes.
all this kind of stuff, and I'm thinking, but there's more, there's more. And
Yeah.
2 years later, I ran from Louisville, Kentucky to the across Kentucky, a 146-mile run, and I was 22 years old, and I said, there's more, there's more. And I just got the taste of it. It's like inside me, there's this hungry horse. Where are the limits? Where are the limits? Where are the limits? And it's what I'm designed to do. The doctors that have studied me, and they had a group from UCLA, medical doctors and physiologists, and they spent 4 days here in Atlanta with me, and they just all kind of things. They were studying the length of this bone and that bone,
Yes.
and so forth.
Trying to find some difference
Yeah.
in you from the rest of us.
And they said at the end, I heard them saying, well, I said, well, what? They said, you're within 1/10,000th of a millimeter being perfectly designed to do what you do. And I've got a friend, Bernie Kosar. He was in 2 Super Bowls, and he's a pretty famous quarterback and all this. And we were talking the other day. And I said, Bernie, the one thing about you and me, I said, I want to tell you a secret desire I have. I want to be an NFL quarterback. And I said, I'm physically fit, but I can dream about being an NFL quarterback till the cows come home, but I'm not 6'4".
Right.
And I told Bernie, I said, neither can you do what I do because you're not physiologically designed. There's fantasy, and there's fantasy reality.
Sure.
Me being a NFL quarterback, fantasy.
Yep.
But me to run across the United States and you just...
And 40 other countries.
In 40 other countries. But my wife one time, hid the globe. I was sitting there one morning having breakfast, and I said, Carol, you just can't imagine what I'm thinking when I look at the globe. And she hid the globe, and I don't know where, to this day, I don't know where it's.
She said, stop dreaming.
But that's fantasy reality.
Sure.
And when I talked about I'd run the Great Wall, and I ran from Edinburgh, Scotland to the Rock of Gibraltar, another major breakthrough medical study they did on me, they took blood from me every night, because they were doing lactate analysis.
Yeah.
Because they'd never ever studied anybody that they'd studied marathoners, you know, take a little bit of blood before the marathon and then afterwards and then study it. But 80 consecutive days, I was running 54 miles a day, and I looked like a junkie.
Yeah.
I had where they were taking blood every night.
Well, I'm sure, because, you know, again, for most of us, we do extreme physical activity one day, and we know we're going to pay the price the next day,
That's
and
it.
usually the second day after, because of the production of lactate acid in our muscles. But you don't have that. You don't
right.
get that same effect. And why have they determined that you don't get the normal muscle fatigue and require the recovery time that a normal person would?
They have never really studied a person that has run since he's been 5 years old. And when I finished in Washington Monument last Saturday, that marked my 270,000 mile mark. It's amazing. It is amazing what the human body is capable of doing.
It's a machine.
And I'm not anything out of the ordinary, because everybody has something spiritually, divinely
I agree.
that they can do.
I agree.
And-
I agree.
and-
Our gifts and abilities are God-given, and it's up to
Amen.
you if you decide to use them or not, but they're there. You just have to figure out what they are.
There's potential,
use
and then
them.
there's potential realized.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So over the course of your running career, give me an estimate of how many physicians have actually studied you.
Oh, Lord. It's been, here's a good Southern word, it's been beaucoup. I cannot even begin to think about this, because it was back in the 70s that they started taking notice of me.
Yeah.
That, you know, with all this running. And there's been studies published in, I think, I don't know, JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. This study that I was telling about lactate analysis, this was in all the European medical journals.
Okay.
About that. So,
Yeah.
and
Those are pretty big journals.
and there's a doctor that's working with me right now, that is into some new, mind-boggling breakthrough in science and so forth in human performance. And in the last 25 years, he's been named the #1 by the American Medical Association as the #1 doctor in America.
Oh, wow.
And plus all this other. So
That's
he's
amazing.
fascinated. And then I have another major organization that is talking to me about next year, like running 100 cities, 15 miles a city, because they said, Stan, we have things on paper, but they said you put feet and legs to these plans. And so it opens up interesting possibilities.
It's a beautiful concept that you've brought to life, and I love it. I love that it's God-inspired, that it's all about relationship building. I did promise I would ask a question, and I thought it was
Okay.
interesting. When my husband found out we were doing this interview, he said, I want to know what he thinks about when he's running for 30 miles straight. What are you thinking about? I mean, obviously people are coming up to see you because the media gets behind you. They know you're coming through their city. So people can come along and join you on the
That's
run,
right.
essentially, and talk to you. And of course you stop, because it's all about friendship. So you're building relationships. But when you're in those in-between moments, when it's just you and the pavement, what are you thinking about?
I have a book publisher that contacted me 2 days ago. I have, to date, I have written 2,400 different thoughts. I call it Thoughts on the Run.
Okay.
And every single morning, it just flows. But I've been thinking about it all during the day. And sometimes they're goofy little thoughts, but I don't ever take the time. People say, do you want to quit? Quit? Give me a break. I ran through snowstorms. I ran through dust storms, hailstorms, and so forth on this run, 117 degrees. I don't quit. And in this mind, when I'm talking to people, I say, what do you think about Nothing. That's a psychological impossibility.
You have to think about something.
And you have to think about something. But it's a wonderful, beautiful world. And of course, my body, if you put the right fuel in the body, it's performance. It's performance. 30 miles a day is within this 78-year-old physiological body.
Well, and that's a perfect segue because I want to talk about your nutrition, and I love your philosophy. You know, I think what we eat, what we choose, and we do choose to put into our bodies, because you did indicate our bodies are made to be a well-oiled machine. So what we put in it, I like to refer to it as the fuel. The caliber of fuel that we put into our body really matters. So talk about your nutrition, what you eat, how you make decisions about the food that you eat.
First of all, right off the bat, as you were asking the question, I'm thinking, here are all these beautiful Ferrari bodies born into the world. But we make the clunkers out of it, because if you put low-octane fuel into the body, that motor's going to knock. Our 5 top killers are lifestyle killers. It's what we're poking in the mouth. And I do a speech, Lynda, called "Get Off Your Fatty Acids," so that's another topic. But every time I eat, I ask myself one of two things. Is this for nutrition? Is this beneficial? Is my body going to perform? I'm drinking a cup of coffee here. I'm breaking my own little rule. Because it looks cool here sitting beside your cup and all that.
Yes, it does.
But
I have decaffeinated hot tea.
I'm so proud of you. But I ask myself, is this nutritional or is it recreational? 90% plus I'm eating for nutrition. And get over this stupid fact that so many people think good nutrition, you're running around with a carrot stick stuck in your mouth all day long, or eating a piece of celery, or being weird. No, I eat vegetables, I eat fruits, I eat salads, I eat grilled chicken, I eat grilled fish. And in the morning I make myself a mind-boggling concoction with oatmeal. In the morning I put apples and all kind of neat things in it, and a big scoop of frozen orange juice in my concoction, and bananas, and oh my gosh.
That sounds really good.
Oh,
almost like a smoothie.
It's as we say back home in Kentucky, it's gooder than snuff, not near as dusty. But it's all about performance, and if I'm putting the right fuel into my body. And as I shared with you earlier, if somebody invited me to their house and they've got Stanley Jr., we just want to feed you some of this pork tenderloin. Oh, it's going to be so good. I'm not going to be rude and say no. I'm not going to insult my host. I may not eat a second piece. But you're polite. And I go to all these countries. Holy cow, eating in China. Woo!
And they think you're a celebrity anyway, that you are a celebrity, but they're treating you like a celebrity and rolling out the red carpet. So I'm sure they're whining and dining you.
They brought out dog meat for me. They brought out cobra meat. Now, I actually like cobra meat. It's just like eating a piece of Chick-fil-A
I'm
chicken.
Sure the viewers are going,
I know,
did you just say cobra meat?
But there's things, but you're in these countries and they're fixing the best things for you. And
that's awesome.
When you're there.
So let me ask you this. When you, obviously for you, I think we need to clarify, what is your normal run per day? Because I think you hinted to this earlier, that for you, you don't just train like a marathon runner. Oh, I'm training for this marathon, and now the marathon's over, so I'm out of training and I go back to more normal. For you, it's part of your lifestyle. You don't ever stop running. So essentially, you are a lifelong, culmination of continual training. But when you're not running cross country, what's a normal day for you?
Well, I finished Saturday. Sunday was my travel day to come back to Atlanta. Monday morning, I ran 10 miles in the morning, 10 miles in the afternoon. But I have to, because when you go to events, you get ready for parties and all this other kind of stuff, and after it's over and you're there and the crowd's all gone and so forth, and there's this letdown. Well, endorphins are the body's natural speed. You're buzzing. And then when it's all over, you just can't go cold turkey. This is why Monday morning, I had to run 10 miles, in the evening, 10 miles. Just before I came here, 10 miles. When I leave you today, I'll run 10 more miles.
Yes.
And you can't go just cold turkey, because I learned this. This is all part of the learning process. And I did one of these way out runs back in the early 70s. And then I was going to take a week off, and I found myself in the bathtub, and I was there crying. I didn't know what was going on. And I had the opportunity, this PhD, MD, that was in all about human performance at the time, and said, your body is going through the withdrawal. You're like a drug addict.
Yes.
And so I have to offset that.
Yep.
Even though it's 10 miles shorter, the 20 miles, I'm
Yeah.
running my 10 miles much faster.
Yes, more aggressive runs.
More aggressive.
Yes, yes, so that makes sense. So you're slowly coming off of the 30 mile down into a 20 mile, which is still unbelievable for most of us. I mean, you literally get up in the morning, go run 10 miles.
That's right.
And then in the afternoon you do that again.
Yes.
And right now you're doing that aggressively after coming off a 100 consecutive day cross country from coast to coast run.
Absolutely.
At 30 miles a day.
And
I mean, that's amazing.
One other little thing I want to make a point to your listeners out here. Don't buy into this garbage that you're old.
Yeah.
Age is just merely a number. I'm 78. I'm not old. I've just lived 78 years.
I agree with you. I agree with you. So you talked earlier about breaking records. So I want to say that, you know, for your 78th birthday, you started this run.
Right.
Due to COVID, it would have been last year, but
That's
it
right.
wound up being this year. And you broke your own record.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
Well, the longest that I had ever gone before, and I mentioned a little while ago, Edinburgh, Scotland to the Rock of Gibraltar.
Yep.
80 consecutive days, 54 miles a day. And I remember thinking when I got to the Rock of Gibraltar, and this was my own little private thought, I'm sure glad I don't have to run another day, 81
You were
days.
glad it was over.
I was glad it was over.
Yeah.
And then deep down, I wondered how I would be feeling at 80 days on this trip, and especially the route that they brought me through was in, there's a TV celebrity that goes, "Are you stupid?" And the people that
The
brought me
extreme
through,
heat, the extreme cold.
it was crazy. It was crazy.
Yes.
But I'm not complaining. I did it. I
Yes,
did it.
you did it.
Reese
You
Witherspoon at
achieved.
the end
You
of
achieved.
what was that movie? I forget. She was a Harvard professor, and they not a professor, but at the end they had her to what was it? Legally Blonde. Legally Blonde.
Yes,
At the end, and she
yes.
said in her speech,
it.
"We did it."
You did it.
And
Yes, yes.
So I did it.
Yeah, you achieved. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. Despite the extreme elements,
Yeah.
you still overcame and
Yeah.
achieved. So talk just a little bit. We have a few minutes left. I want to
Okay.
really talk about your faith, how you're inspired by your faith, that that your body clearly in your mind is truly the temple of God,
Amen.
and that's the way that you treat it.
Absolutely.
And God gave you these, unique physical abilities that have given you the opportunity to be an amazing endurance runner. But that required you accepting those gifts and really being able to live a life inspired by the gifts that God gave you. So talk a little bit about your faith and how that's incorporated into everything that you do with your runs.
At the end of 1980, nothing had worked out for me. And every time I was turning around, somebody was saying, "Do you think God might be saying something to you? Do you think God might be saying something to you?" And I would scream out, "Just shut up. I don't want to hear this. I don't want." Every time I turn around, somebody's doing this God stuff with me. And I went to see my attorney one morning, and this attorney was sitting there just looking at me, and he says, "I don't want to represent you anymore." He said, "God's kicking you on the shins. He's trying to get your attention." And he said, "Nothing's going to work out for you." Well, Lynda, he came out from around the desk and grabbed me by the throat and slammed me up against the wall, and I was down, and he was drawing back his fist saying, "I'm never going to represent you until you go to church." And I said,
Wow.
"Oh, okay, I'll go to church." And all the other attorneys there, they were scared, thinking I was going to bring a lawsuit. I wasn't going to do that. And I'm on my way home, and I get in the car, and I thought, who does he think he is? And I thought the best thing in the world for me to do is go tell Carol I'm going to get a divorce, and I'm going to go somewhere. I couldn't get a job. Nothing was working out. And all of a sudden, I smelled something funny in my car, and I pulled the car up into Ember Hills parking lot, and my car caught fire and burned up, and I had to call Carol to come and get me. I couldn't run away. And I went to church that Sunday.
God wasn't going to let you get away.
That's right. And I went to church that Sunday, and I heard the truth.
Okay.
And my life has never been the same since.
And you've been living in faith ever since.
Ever since.
We're wrapping up, but real quick, what's next?
What's
in
next?
15 seconds, what's next?
15 seconds. I've got all kind of things on the drawing board. Oh, it's going to be exciting.
You got new books? You got a series of books? Four new books.
Four new books. Also a company, Netflix filmed this run. The Netflix production is going to come out, and then there's also the movie that's going to be made on one of my books.
That's amazing.
Woo!
I'm so excited to have you here. We've had Stanley Cotrell, and now we have the opportunity to hear Malachi Mills again with Have Your Way.
I don't wanna build another temple when you've already torn it down. You've already torn it down. I've worn the crown for far too long. So Jesus, I lay it down. Jesus, I throw it down. Have your way, have your way. You want it all, so take your place. Have your way, have your way. I stand amazed at what you gave. Have your way, have your way. You want it all, so take your place. Have your way, have your way. I stand amazed at what you gave. Oh. Dethrone the idols of my heart. They never could take your place. They never could match your fame. Oh, and I've lived a life for far too long, but now I'm standing beneath your grace. Oh, and my future's forever changed. Have your way, have your way. You want it all, so take your place. Have your way, have your way. I stand amazed at what you gave. Have your way, have your way. You want it all, so take your place. Have your way, have your way. I stand amazed at what you gave. Oh. So stir it up and shake the ground till every lie comes crashing down. And stir it up and shake the ground till every fear comes crashing down. Stir it up and shake the ground till every lie comes crashing down. Stir it up and shake the ground till every fear comes crashing down. 'Cause every idol will have to bow. The King of Kings is reigning now. And every idol will have to bow. 'Cause the King of Kings is reigning now. And reigning now. And reigning now. The King of Kings is reigning now. He's reigning now. He's reigning now. Have your way, have your way. You want it all, so take your place. Have your way, have your way. I stand amazed at what you gave. Have your way, have your way. You want it all, so take your place. Have your way, have your way. God, we stand amazed at what you gave.
What an amazing interview with Stan Cotrell. It was such a pleasure for me to personally be able to connect with an old friend. But, you know, I've known Stan for 15 years, and I have witnessed him running across these various countries around the world. And one of the things that we talked about before the interview was, you know, all of the causes that he's represented in his life. He has a passion for orphans and vulnerable children. He's visited many orphanages around the world on these friendship runs. He truly runs in the spirit of building friendship. And that is such a unique and special purpose that God has called him to do. And he's given him this great body. And I just wanted to take a moment. I'm also an author, and I practice great health. And I want to say, you know, I hope that you picked up from Stan his dedication to taking care of this beautiful, complex machine that God has given us called a body. And Stan has dedicated his life to trying to eat the right nutrition, to make sure to get obviously enough physical exercise because of what he does. But, you know, he said in the interview, just move. You know, get up and go walk down the street and come back. And after a few weeks, our body actually craves physical activity. You will probably want to walk a little bit further. So you don't have to take on going to a gym or doing all of this laborious, you know, exercise. Just move this beautiful body that God has given you and take care of it, because it truly is the temple of God. Stan has proven that. He, at 78 years old, is still running across countries. It's an amazing feat. It's almost miraculous, but it's because of his dedication to taking care of his health. So thank you so much for joining us. It has been my pleasure to host this amazing interview with Stan Cotrell. Take care and God bless.